Those of you that would like to see what the final product is going to look like without the buttons and the stitching and all that done, this is it. You can see there's a little bit of glare on it, but that's what it ends up looking like after I've done all the work. Okay, here I am. I'm trying out this pattern that I call a braid. Now I've gone through this fairly quickly because the actual process of stamping that braid correctly well, it requires a little bit more instruction, and I'd rather focus right now on just showing the basic pattern and the process of dyeing the black section of it. Because I knew when I started this project I wanted to do a dual tone, duotone as they call it. And I was planning to contrast black with another color in order to create kind of an interesting pattern. In this case, I was going to do the braid in a lighter color, and then the outer contrast color would be the black. So here I am just dyeing. This is actual dye, it's not paint. You gotta be very careful when you're using a brush with paint, because it draws more dye or ink than you'd like to more often than not, and it can actually bleed into your pattern if you're not careful. That's why when I'm doing the brush work, you'll notice whenever I dip my brush in, I always run out the extra ink in the fill area, and then after I've run out a little bit of the ink on the brush in the fill area, I'll take and do the more detailed edge work afterwards. But if you want a better example of this, I'm going to, when I actually sit into the task of painting this, the pattern that I use in the final one, I'll leave part of it normal speed so you can see what I'm doing, because it requires a lot more detailed work than this one, this little test piece does. So here I am, I'm just basically finishing up the black. After I do the black, then I'm going to take each braid and I'm going to dye it a certain color in order to have that, like I say, that contrast, and decide what color I want to use. So that's what I'm working on right now. I've let this dry. I put on a coat of protectant on it. Now I'm going to actually lay down some color in this and see what I get out of it. So I'm going to start off with green in this one and see what I get. Since it's been coated, all I have to basically do is just lay it down like so, let it kind of sink in a little bit, and then take a paper towel and wipe it off like so. Okay, so that's what we get for green. It's actually a really nice little braid. I like that. Next thing I'm going to try is saddle tan right here. One of the reasons why I laid down the black is so that I could dab this at a fairly strong concentration, and I don't have to worry about it changing the color, because it's not going to change the color of the black. The black's a little too strong for that. So there we go. I've got the saddle tan there. I'll just dab it. Next I've got the red. I'm expecting the red to be a little bit strong, as it has been traditionally at this point. This tends to just stand out quite a bit. This protectant, one of the things it does is it kind of limits how much the dye will change the color, because that protectant doesn't really let it sink in and absorb into the leather very well. So I'm able to limit the darkness of it. I'm going to try this blue that I have. I'm curious how the blue is going to look. It's sort of like a turquoise blue. I've never really spent a lot of time trying the blue. The one thing I can say for this blue, though, is it looks like it's kind of interesting. I almost like the different colors. Wipe that down. Try not to spill anything more. So those are the different colors: green, saddle tan, red, and blue. I think they all have their own different strengths that they provide. This, I went ahead and laid down the different colors, and then what I'm going to do on this one, after this ink here dries, I'm going to put another protective coat on it and see if the protective coat draws out this and makes it a little more glossy, because I think it will, and I think it's going to look nice if you make it real glossy. This is the finished product of my test piece. As you can see here, the coating is finally dried, and now we get an idea of what it really looks like. Now this is just a test piece, so it doesn't matter if I try to do something else to it and add more to it. So it has a nice coating now of material on there. So the next step that I'm going to go ahead and do, because it's just a test piece and I don't care if it gets ruined, is to see if I can redefine this a little bit more with the antique gel. Because I'd like this pattern to come out and really pop out a little bit more. It's just not as strong as I would like. Now I could try to take the pens, I misspoke, and define it that way, which I'm going to do on the blue one. I'm going to take the pens and do it on the blue one, and then I'm going to use antique gel on the black one. So that's what I'm going to be working on today. I'm still literally working on what I call the fill pattern. That's the pattern that will fill the entire thing. Then I have to decide whether or not I want to do a border pattern, which is a pattern that will run around the edge of the item to sort of create a border right along the stitching. That's the other thing I have to decide, is if I'm going to do a border pattern. And I haven't decided on that yet. I probably will, just to sort of demonstrate it. So that's where I'm at. I am now going to take and do the antique gel on the green and do the pencil on the blue and see how, pen on the blue and see how it turns out. Okay, so I've got my pens here. I'm using 10, the one that I mentioned before, and I'm gonna, let's see here. What I'm really worried about are these points right here. Just gonna sort of mark it, the definition of it. And I'm already not liking what I'm seeing here. Try the 7. See if we can get a little bit more detailed. Yeah, that doesn't look good at all. That's going to be a problem.
Also want to see if it's possible for me to mark up in there. Here's the 7. Because I thought maybe of just darkening in the center of it as well, like so, to see how it looks. See if it adds anything more to it, like so. Again, I'm just using a number 7 pen here to do this with. It has alcohol-based ink, so it should work just fine for this. The texture on this leather actually makes it a little bit easier to write on it like this. So that's what it would look like if I actually took and did the whole thing in pen right there. It would add a sort of Y in the center. So that's one way to do it. I can't say I really like the way that it looks. So the next step would be for me to try and gel this and see what it would look like if I gelled it. It has a protective coating on it, so the gel shouldn't stick to it very well. And that's what I'm counting on. And my gel is right here, and I forgot to put the cap on. So the gel's all dried. Shot, no good. Means I'll have to get another cup and lid. It's so easy to make a mistake like that when you're a little disorganized like I am. Happens. Okay. Move this out of the way so I don't accidentally contaminate it. Now this EcoFlow one that I'm using is actually medium brown. They have different ones, but this is the one I bought a long time ago. I just never got around to using because I don't do the antiquing very often. I wish I'd gotten black though. It's not cheap stuff. I'm not sure what it cost, but I think it was in the $40 or $50 range just for a bottle of this. So here we go. I'm going to smooth it in here, and then I'm going to wipe it off. And I'm going to use my favorite thing for this kind of work. I'm going to use a Q-tip. Because they're cheap, easy to replace. Get it nice and covered. And I'm going to smooth it in there. Get it all up into the cracks. And see what this will look like if I try to antique it. Okay, now I'm going to take my handy dandy paper towels. I'm going to try to wipe it. Try to wipe it in a way that it doesn't interfere with the red. So I'll take off most of it here, and then I'll just sort of wipe it through. Okay. The primary concern in doing this is to get a little more definition on it. As you can see, it does add a little bit of definition, particularly to the vertices. but this part gets washed out, which makes sense. If you were using something on a regular basis, it would be smooth on the top, and it's in the crevices where you'd have buildup. So that's the way the blue looks. Now I'm going to try the green. Well, let me do the red first. I want to see how the red looks. Still haven't given up. When you're doing design like this, or you're trying to decide what to do, it's always good to have other ideas. Even if you're not planning to do them or you don't think you're going to do them, you never know. You might find that when you're doing something like this, that you really like the look of it, and something surprises you. And so you say, well, you know what, I'm going to do that. Even though your initial plan was something totally different. It's always good to try a lot of different things for future reference, if nothing else. Because somewhere down the road, you may decide, you know what, I really like the way that looked, so I'm going to go back and do that on another project where it might be a better idea to do it on. Okay. Now, since I've done the whole thing, it doesn't really matter if I wipe the whole thing. So I'm going to get a glove on and do what I did before. I just wipe it all off. Try not to throw it on the ground like I did that one. Stuff gets everywhere. Okay. My primary concern is the surface of this. Okay, so there you have antiquing on this braided pattern. See, what it really does is it adds a little bit of dark to all of the internal gaps, and it makes a nice little braided look a little bit more defined. Stands out a lot more. So those are the different ones. I've got blue, I've got red. It was saddle tan, but it's looking more orange now, and then of course green. So those are the different colors. And then there's also the issue of, do I want the braid to run down like this, or do I want it to run side to side like this on the item? I generally prefer it running down like this. For this fill pattern, I'm going to be doing something like this, where I'm going to do a green, black, green, black, green, etc., and just alternate between just the braid and then just the regular leather. Question I need to ask myself is, if I take a braid and invert it, is there any way I can make it look like it goes under the leather and up to the next one? And that's what I'm trying to decide, is if there's a way to do that and make it look decent. So I'm going to get this piece of leather, a leftover piece, soaking wet. See, it produces a fairly strong pattern. So let's continue this. I'm not worried about color right now. I'm just doing this to see if I can get the braid to look a little bit more uniform. That's why I'm doing this right now. It may be that it won't work out, I don't know. And I'm lining up this little triangle piece right in the crux of the pattern right here, right there. This particular one, that's how it's done. Each pattern is different. Sometimes the fill stamp, I call these fill stamps because you basically use them just to fill a bunch of area. They're not like for borders, they're more for fill inside of a space. Okay, so here I've got this. Now I'm going to try to line up where this pattern right here would be with right there, where one of these. I'm not sure if it's going to be even possible, but I'm going to do that where I sort of, right here, I've got this braid ends here, so I want it to look like the braid comes right to there. And I'm going to alternate that way and see how it looks. Like so. See how the braid pattern, it looks like it goes right under the leather now? I'll show you here in a bit when I do this. It helps to create a very distinctive pattern that's kind of cool. I didn't get that exactly straight, but it's not that big of a deal with a test piece. So I'm inverting the pattern and running it the other way in order to make it look like it's actually braided in. Like so. It looks like this braid's coming through under the leather to this piece and so forth. It looks like there's this trajectory of the braid going under the leather into the other braid. And I'm going to do the entire piece with this sort of inverted braided pattern.